All right, good morning. Live from Nasdaq's global headquarters in Lower Manhattan. Welcome to this week's edition of Nasdaq Advisory Live, brought to you by Corporate Solutions. I'm your host, Will Briganti, and joining me today is Michael Spector. Michael, great to have you here.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
For all of our viewers, you probably recognize Michael. The last time we were on, we were both wearing New York Rangers jerseys.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they lost, so we do not have a Stanley Cup to celebrate. But what we are going to talk about today is the real estate investment trust sector, which is what Michael's specialty is here at Nasdaq Corporate Solutions. So Michael, let's get started. What are you seeing in trading for the sector?
So we just finished the first half of 2017, and I think last time we talked about all the volatility.
Yeah.
Despite all of the volatility, REITs actually finished in the green for the first half of 2017. The FTSE Nareit All REIT Index returned about 5.5%. The first half of 2017, which marginally, I'm going to say marginally, but underperformed the S&P 500 by about 2%. There was a focus on the FANG complex,
yes,
we're going to call it. Outside of that, and REITs are income, more defensive pocket of the market. So,
okay.
The underperformance was unsurprising, but to start the, we're now in the third quarter of 2017,
right.
which
pretty
came,
wild, right?
Yeah, it came
we're
pretty fast.
Here, yeah.
It's been a lackluster start
Okay.
for the third quarter. The U.S. MSCI REIT Index is actually down 3%
Okay.
in the first about 2 weeks of the third quarter. So.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what happens as sort of the retail industry continues to sort of like track for the year.
Right.
But we're not going to get into that just yet. Well, maybe a separate
right.
segment. But what I do want to get from you right now is obviously your clients are investor relations officers,
sure,
or C-suite executives at real estate investment trust companies. What are you seeing in terms of giving them intelligence on what's happening with investors in that space?
Well, the sector's capital base is kind of it's kind of evolved a bit.
Yep.
Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about the increased passive investment in just the entire market in general.
That's right.
If you look across the REIT sector's capital base, about 25 to 30% is passively owned. Okay. We've actually seen a lot of outflows for the year with the reflation theme, a more hawkish Fed, and all the retail headlines. We've seen outflows from these passively managed ETFs. And the other large portion of the sector's capital base is what we call the REIT mafia.
Okay.
You may have heard the term REIT mafia thrown around, which is kind of like a dubious term,
sure,
but really it's a group of investors that the dedicated REIT investment community that owns a majority of the sector's capital base.
Okay.
So if you look across the top 30 REIT investors, they own about 30% of the sector's capital base. Right. These guys traditionally have been lower turnover and highly concentrated, within the top 10.
Okay.
If you look across there's now 30 S&P 500 real estate constituents. A lot of those names you'll see in the top 10, top 20, top 25. On the shareholder list, those investors have actually been much higher in their portfolio turnover. And I always get questions from my clients, the IROs or C-suite executives, we're looking at somebody like Cohen & Steers, why have they been so high turnover?
Right.
And the answer is just because they have more options now.
Okay.
If you looked at the sector when it was everyone was first forming their opinion on REITs in like the early 90s, we looked at traditional property sectors like office, apartments, retail, storage. Through reconversions and IPOs, the sector's got a lot bigger.
Yeah. And particularly now that it's its own standalone asset.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And firms and non-traded REITs are looking to access the public markets. Yeah. We have new property sectors like data centers and cell tower owners, and it's a really interesting time for REITs.
Sure.
But now these REIT dedicated investors have more options when it comes to investing and their stock picking accordingly.
Thank you, Michael. My final question for you is, obviously we're about to start the earnings cycle for the second quarter. What are you starting to hear?
Best quarter ever. That's always what we hear, right?
That's right. That's right.
It's every quarter's the best quarter ever, better than the last. But I think that REIT earnings are going to surprise a lot of investors, especially in sectors that have been either under followed or that are trading at significant discounts.
Right,
NAV.
so that would be like apartment or
It would be,
commercial or?
I would look at retail. I think retail,
yeah.
all three types. We look at malls, we look at strip retail, which
Right.
is just, it's some indices say, or some investors say shopping centers.
Okay, sure.
Strip retail is, it's any retail space that isn't part of an enclosure,
Right.
right? It's not in a mall.
Right.
It's either a shopping center, a community center,
Sure.
or freestanding. I think a lot of those earnings are going to surprise to the upside.
Okay.
If you look at the S&P 500, I think the blended EPS growth rate is about 6.5%.
Yeah.
On an aggregated basis for REITs, we look at FFO, funds from operation.
Yep.
It's about 4% over 2Q of last year.
Okay.
It's not an apples to oranges comparison.
Right.
REITs are a defensive pocket of the market. It's an income play, not a growth play.
Okay.
And real estate performance is benchmarked against a real estate cycle, which tends to be longer than a standard business cycle.
Well, because of leases. and
Right,
stuff.
exactly. So everything operates on leases, and it's, we have some property sectors that are more cyclical,
Okay.
some property sectors that are more defensive. On the cyclical side, we have hotels, apartments. On the defensive side, freestanding retail, and anyone who operates on a lease, above 20 years.
Okay.
So,
All right, well, Michael, we'll leave it there. Excellent insight into the
Thank
real
you.
estate investment trust industry and sector for our viewers today live on Twitter, Periscope. So thank you so much, Michael. We'll look to get you back
Cool.
as some of the names that you follow start to report earnings. It would be great to kind of get some of the details once some of these results start to get posted
Right.
later this month. So thank you very much. And for all of our viewers, thanks so much for tuning in live on Nasdaq's Twitter page. And if you're interested in more information about all of the research and insight that Michael and the rest of his team at Nasdaq Advisory Services can assist with, be sure to contact us. You can post a comment at our Twitter page, which is MyCorpSolutions, and you can also contact us through our website. It's business.nasdaq.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. As always, you can get all of this insight on Nasdaq IR Insight, and we look forward to seeing you back next Tuesday. Have a great weekend. Thank you.